I think you understand the rules of Final. I was trying not to say final. Gopher's teeth are exposed, whereas the groundhog has a fluffy tail. Are you been listening to me?
Huh? Oh, I'm sorry, dude. I'm just a little busy here. I'm trying to get into sports, so I'm coming up with a fantasy football team.
What? Let me see that. Sonic, Zoidberg, and Captain Picard. I don't think you understand the rules of fantasy football.
Are you sure?
Yeah, you even spelled fantasy wrong. With a PH?
Well, that's just how it's spelled. Like Phantasy Star 2? One of the best role-playing games ever?
No, it's definitely spelled with an F. Like Final Fantasy 2. A much better RPG game.
Do you want to go to war? Because that's how you go to war.
Yeah, if you could call Massacre a war.
Final Fantasy II is a role-playing game released for the Super Nintendo in 1991. It's actually the fourth Final Fantasy game in the popular RPG series, and is now called Final Fantasy IV. The game is one of the greatest games of all time, and since its initial release, there have been many remakes and many releases for various consoles. There was also a sequel which continued the story of many of the characters.
Phantasy Star 2 is a role-playing game released for Sega Genesis in 1990. It was the first 16-bit RPG released in the West and became a benchmark title for the genre. This game has also been considered one of the greatest games of all time. There are many re-releases and remakes of this game as well. Final Fantasy 2 versus Phantasy Star 2. Which game's better? Let's find out.
Phantasy Star 2's graphics are mighty impressive.
The world it takes place in has a nice futuristic feel. 2 overworlds to explore gives you nice scenery to look at. The dungeons have a bit of a 3D thing going on. Ooh, look at those pipes. Battles also have a bit of a 3D perspective as well. The characters and enemies also look great. There's some good detail here. Talk about great character animation. It gives the game some nice intense action.
No way! Final Fantasy II looks way better.
Final Fantasy II on Super Nintendo has more of a medieval fantasy feel to it. You have 3 different worlds you explore with their own unique look. The dungeons all have a great look to them. And battles have nicely detailed characters and enemies. There's nice animations as well. All of these added together make it a better looking game.
Your game has so many flaws.
Look how tiny characters are in Final Fantasy 2. They're all box-shaped and everyone's the same size. Characters in Phantasy Star 2 are bigger and come in different sizes. Easier on the eyes and variety in size. Nice.
Variety in size? More like variety in weird.
Even though your characters are bigger, they look weird. They look too tall, like someone stretched them out. It's not a look worth bragging about.
Look how lame the battles look in Final Fantasy 2.
Barely any character animation from the characters, and none from the enemies. Enemies just flash when they attack, and your characters just swing their weapon from a distance. How does that work?
It works just fine. See?
What are you... Ow! What?
In Phantasy Star, everyone is moving. Characters actually move to the enemy to attack. The enemies also have lots of animations too. These fights are much more interesting to look at than Final Fantasies.
Oh, let's talk about having something to look at.
When you fight in Phantasy Star, the background is always the same. Always. Where are these fights taking place? In the Matrix or something? Why is there no real background? In Final Fantasy, if I'm in the woods, the fight takes place in the woods. If I'm in a desert, the fight takes place in the desert. If I'm in a cave, the fight takes place in the Matrix. Just kidding, it takes place in a cave.
And I've only just begun to fight.
The villages and dungeons in Phantasy Star 2 look the same. They may have changed some things, like the color or placements of a building, but still looks the same, and overall boring. Final Fantasy has nice variety, with different looking towns and dungeons. Variety all the way.
And in repetitive RPGs, variety is a good thing.
And that's the big problem with Phantasy Star 2. Everything just looks the same. That is visually boring after a while. Final Fantasy 2, however, constantly gives you new stuff to look at. It sure is pretty too. Best graphics go to Nintendo.
Phantasy Star 2 is gonna win presentation.
This game has a great anime style to it. This is shown during character profiles and various cutscenes. Even when you go into stores, you see these awesome anime characters. And when you don't see anime, in-game cutscenes are used to progress the story.
Check out the presentation in Final Fantasy 2.
There are a lot of in-game cutscenes. This game is loaded with character interactions that help progress the story. Overall, the game is more concerned about story and gameplay. It doesn't focus too much on pretty pictures. But there are some cutscenes that are subtle, but still look good.
Subtle? You mean those boring pictures that sometimes come up? You're not really putting that up against my sexy anime cutscenes, because as we all know, sexy anime cutscenes always win.
Is that a picture of a castle? Sexy anime cutscene. You tell a story, that's nice. Sexy anime cutscene. You save your game all by yourself, but sexy anime saves me. Sexy anime, sexy anime, sexy anime me. Yeah, that's so sexy.
What?
I think that said it all. Music on Phantasy Star 2 is great. What's so funny?
Are you really gonna do this? Do what? Are you gonna compare your music to that of a Final Fantasy game?
That's like comparing a pond to the ocean, a lizard to a dragon, Aquaman to Batman, Ghostbusters to the real Ghostbusters, Console Wars to the angry video game. Well, you get the point. Do you really want to compare these soundtracks?
Yep.
Phantasy Star is very 80s electronic. It's very upbeat. It can also be nice and deep. Fits well within this world.
Well, here's Final Fantasy 2.
Adventurous. Sad. Romantic. There's so many classics here. Phantasy Star isn't bad, but compared to Final Fantasy, it doesn't have a chance. Best music goes to Nintendo.
Final Fantasy 2 has the best gameplay.
It plays like your standard RPG, where you explore, conquer, and move on. If you're too weak, simply fight and level up until you're strong enough. Add a nice, deep, immersive story to the mix, and you got yourself a winner. You have random battles where you fight using attacks, magic, and other various techniques. The game stands out as being the first to use the active time battle system. Basically, the action doesn't stop simply because the player is selecting a command. The system would be used all the way up to Final Fantasy X too.
Oh, Phantasy Star 2's got that beat.
It also has the standard RPG formula of exploring, conquering, and moving on. If you're too weak, it's more about getting new equipment than leveling up. There's also a story to tie everything together nicely. There are also random battles where you take out enemies with attacks, magic, or techniques. The battle system in this game is different in that it's turn-based. It allows you to take your time selecting commands without the fear of being attacked. Once you select commands, You could sit back and relax while the game plays in auto mode.
There's so much your game can't do that mine can't.
Are you kidding? There's so much your game can't do that mine can't.
We'll just see about that. You can't have automatic battle mode.
Oh yeah? You can't attack which enemy you want to attack if it's a group of the same enemy.
You can't use teleporters to get between towns.
You can't use vehicles to get to towns and dungeons.
You can't save anywhere you want. You need save points.
You can't do that until almost halfway through the game. Otherwise, you have to save in a town.
You can't decide who you want to be in your party.
You can't even buy more than one item at a time.
Well, you can't pick different paths, which lead to multiple outcomes, which mean multiple playthroughs.
You can't do that either.
So?
Yeah, anyways.
You can't revive people using items or magic until very late in the game. Otherwise, you always go back to a town. You can't find out if equipment is stronger until after you buy it. You can't move faster than a turtle. You move very slow in this game.
There's not just a lot of things you can't do in your games. There's a lot of things you just don't do in your game.
You don't have lots of useful equipment anywhere but shops. You need a ton of money in this game, so you're gonna have to do a lot of grinding, which becomes very tedious. You don't have many bosses, only 3. Most of this game is a fetch quest, plain and simple. Fetch quests just aren't as satisfying as boss battles.
Who doesn't love fetch quests? Watch this. Here, boy, fetch the crappy game. Stupid dog.
And your dungeons are messed up too.
These dungeons are huge mazes that have many paths that lead to nowhere. They're so big, the developers included maps with the game to reduce frustration. Even if you have a map, it takes forever to get through these dungeons that are way too big and look the same.
Oh, what? Now you got something against mazes? Jeez. Uh-oh.
RPGs are repetitive, but Phantasy Star 2 takes it beyond bearable. You never feel the payoff for all your hard work and time. You feel that payoff in Final Fantasy, where there's lots of boss battles.
Oh, jeez. Now repetition's bad? Unbelievable.
And the story is not as immersive in Phantasy Star 2. You barely get any exposition at all in this game. In Final Fantasy II, the story is constantly thrown in to motivate you to go on, make you care about your characters, and to give you a break from fighting.
Oh, suddenly story's important now. Tell that to Michael Bay.
I tweet him that every day.
Oh, but The Rock's still good.
No doubt about it.
Bottom line, everything becomes tedious in Phantasy Star 2. Final Fantasy II has a better balance with fighting, exploring, and storytelling. Best gameplay goes to Final Fantasy II.
After comparing both games, Final Fantasy II is the better game.
It has better graphics, with more to look at. It may not have cutscenes per se, but it tells its story well enough. It has one of the most classic soundtracks of its time, and is much more inviting and forgiving in its gameplay. Phantasy Star 2 isn't bad, it's just a bit too repetitive. It's a weird thing to say for an RPG, but this game takes it to the extreme. You never feel any payoff for all your hard work. And it is a lot of hard work. Final Fantasy II has a better balance of work and reward, which makes it a more enjoyable game to play. Best RPG game goes to Final Fantasy II.
Thanks for watching our latest video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and keep those suggestions coming. We will get to them.